Welcome back. This is Anne-Lise Kadri reading Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. Chapter 3. My Breaking In. I was now beginning to grow handsome. My coat had grown fine and soft and was glossy black. I had one white foot and a pretty white star on my forehead. People thought me very handsome. My master would not sell me till I was 4 years old. He said lads ought not to work like men and colts ought not to work like horses until they're quite grown up. When I was 4 years old, Squire Gordon came to look at me. He examined my eyes and my mouth and my legs all down. Then I had to walk, trot and gallop before him. He seemed to like me and said, "When he's been well broken in, he will do very well." My master promised to break me in himself, as he would not like me to be frightened or hurt, and he lost no time about it, for the next day the breaking in began. Everyone may not know what breaking in is, so I'll describe it. To break in a horse is to teach it to wear a saddle and bridle, and to carry on its back a man, a woman or child, to go just the way the rider wishes, and to do so quietly. Besides this, the horse has to learn to wear a collar, a crupper and a breeching, and he must learn to stand still whilst these are put on. Then he must be taught to have a cart or a chaise fixed behind him, so that he cannot walk or trot without dragging it after him, and he must learn to go quickly or slowly, just as his driver wishes. He must never start at what he sees, speak to other horses, bite, kick, or have any will of his own, but must always do his master's will, even though he may be very tired or hungry. But the worst of all is that when his harness is once on, he may neither jump for joy nor lie down for weariness. So, you see, this breaking in is a great thing. Of course, I had long been used to a halter and a headstall, and to be led about in the fields and lanes quietly, but now I was to have a bit and a bridle. My master gave me some oats as usual, and after a good deal of coaxing, he got the bit into my mouth and fixed the bridle. What a nasty thing the bit was! Those who've never had one in their mouth cannot think how bad it feels. A great piece of cold, hard steel as thick as a man's finger is pushed between your teeth and over your tongue, with the ends coming out at the corners of your mouth, and it's held fast there by straps over your head, under your throat, round your nose and under your chin, so that no way in the world can you get rid of the nasty hard thing. Bad! Bad! Yes, very bad. At least I thought so. But I knew my mother always wore one when she went out, and that all horses did when they were grown up. And so, what with the nice oats, and what with my master's pats, kind words and gentle ways, I got to wear my bit and bridle. Next came the saddle, but that was not half so bad. My master put it on my back very gently, whilst old Daniel held my head. Then, patting and talking to me all the time, he made the girths fast under my body. I had a few oats, then I was led about for a little while, and this went on every day till I began to look for the oats and the saddle. At length, one morning my master got on my back and rode me round the meadow on the soft grass. It certainly did feel queer, but I must say I felt rather proud to carry my master, and, as he continued to ride me a little every day, I soon became accustomed to it. The next unpleasant business was putting on the iron shoes. That too was very hard at first. My master went with me to the smith's forge to see that I was not hurt or frightened. The blacksmith took my feet in his hand, one after the other, and cut away some of the hoof. It did not pain me, so I stood still on 3 legs till he had done them all. Then he took a piece of iron, the shape of my foot, clapped it on, and drove some nails through the shoe quite into my hoof, so that the shoe was firmly held. My feet were very stiff and heavy, but in time I got used to it. And now, having got so far, my master went on to break me to harness. For this there were more new things to wear. First they placed a stiff, heavy collar just on my neck, and a bridle with great side pieces called blinkers against my eyes. And blinkers indeed they were, for I could not see on either side, but only straight in front of me. Next there was a small saddle with a nasty stiff strap that went right under my tail. That was the crupper. I hated the crupper. To have my long tail doubled up and poked through that strap was almost as bad as the bit. I never felt more like kicking, but of course I could not kick such a good master, and so in time I got used to everything, and could do my work as well as my mother. I must not forget to mention one part of my training which I have always considered a very great advantage. My master sent me for a fortnight to a neighbouring farmer who had a meadow which was skirted on one side by the railway. Here were some sheep and cows, and I was turned in amongst them. I shall never forget the first train that ran by. I was feeding quietly near the pales which separated the meadow from the railway, when I heard a strange sound at a distance, and before I knew whence it came, with a rush and a clatter, and a puffing out of smoke, a long black train of something flew by, and was gone almost before I could draw my breath. I turned and galloped to the farther side of the meadow as fast as I could go, and there I stood snorting with astonishment and fear. In the course of the day many other trains went by, some more slowly. These drew up at the station close by, and sometimes made an awful shriek and groan before they stopped. I thought it was very dreadful, but the cows went on eating very quietly, and hardly raised their heads as the black frightful thing came puffing and grinding past. For the first few days I could not feed at peace, but as I found that this terrible creature never came into the field nor did me any harm, I began to disregard it, and very soon I cared as little about the passing of a train as the cows and sheep did. Since then I've seen many horses much alarmed and restive at the sight or sound of a steam engine, but thanks to my good master's care, I am as fearless at railway stations as in my own stable. Now if anyone wants to break in a young horse well, that's the way to do it. My master often drove me in double harness with my mother because she was steady and could teach me how to go better than a strange horse. She told me the better I behaved, the better I should be treated, and that it was wisest always to do my best to please my master. But, said she, there are a great many kinds of men. There are good, thoughtful men, like our master, that any horse may be proud to serve. But there are bad, cruel men, who never ought to have a horse or a dog to call their own. Besides these, there are a great many men, foolish, vain, ignorant, and careless, who never trouble themselves to think. These spoil more horses than anyone, just for want of sense. They don't mean it, but they do it for all that. I hope you will fall into good hands, but a horse never knows who may buy him or who may drive him. It is all a chance, but still I say, do your best wherever you are, and keep up your good name. Chapter 4. Birtwick Park. At this time I used to stand in the stable, and my coat was brushed every day till it shone like a rook's wing. Early in May there came a man from Squire Gordon's who took me away to the hall. My master said, "Good-bye, Darky. Be a good horse, and always do your best." I could not say good-bye, so I put my nose into his hand. He patted me kindly, and then I left my first home. As I lived some years with Squire Gordon, I may as well tell you something about the place. Squire Gordon's park skirted the village of Birtwick. It was entered by a large iron gate at which stood the first lodge, and then you trotted along on a smooth road between clumps of large old trees. Soon you passed another lodge and another gate which brought you to the house and the gardens. Beyond this lay the home paddock, the old orchard, and the stables. There was accommodation for many horses and carriages, but I need only describe the stable into which I was taken. This was very roomy, with 4 good stalls. A large swinging window opened into the yard. This made it pleasant and airy. The first stall was a large square one, shut in behind with a wooden gate. The others were common stalls, good stalls, but not nearly so large. My stall had a low rack for hay and a low manger for corn. It was called a loose box because the horse that was put into it was not tied up but left loose to do as he liked. It's a great thing to have a loose box. Into this fine box, clean, sweet and airy, the groom put me. I never in my life was in a better box, and the sides were not so high but that I could see through the iron rails at the top all that went on. The man gave me some very nice oats, patted me, spoke kindly, and then went away. When I'd eaten my corn I looked round. In the stall next to mine stood a fat grey little pony with a thick mane and tail, a very pretty head and a pert little nose. Putting my head up to the iron rails at the top of my box, I said, "How do you do? What's your name?" He turned round as far as his halter would allow, held up his head and said, "My name's Merrylegs. I'm very handsome. I carry the young ladies on my back, and sometimes I take our mistress out in the low chair. They think a great deal of me, and so does James. Are you going to live next door to me in the box?" "Yes," I replied. "Well then," he said, "I hope you're good-tempered. Next door to me I do not like anyone who bites." Just then a horse's head looked over from the stall beyond. The ears were laid back, and the eye looked rather ill-tempered. This tall chestnut mare with a long, handsome neck looked across to me and said, "So, it's you who's turned me out of my box. Is it not a very strange thing for a colt like you to come and turn a lady out of her own home?" "I beg your pardon," I said. "I have turned no one out. The man who brought me put me here, and I had nothing to do with it. And as to my being a colt, I am turned 4 years old, and I am a grown-up horse. I never yet had words with horse or mare, and it is my wish to live at peace." "Well," she said, "we shall see. Of course I do not want to have words with a young thing like you." I said no more. In the afternoon, when she went out, Merrylegs told me all about the mare. "The thing is this," said Merrylegs. "Ginger has a bad habit of biting and snapping. That's why she's called Ginger. When she was in the loose box, she used to snap very much. One day she bit James in the arm and made it bleed. And so Miss Flora and Miss Jessie, who are very fond of me, were afraid to come into the stable. They used to bring me nice things to eat, an apple or a carrot or a piece of bread. But after Ginger stood in that box, they dare not come, and I miss them very much. I hope if you do not bite or snap that they will now come again." I told him I never bit anything but grass, hay, and corn, and could not think what pleasure Ginger found in it. "Well, I don't think she does find pleasure in it," said Merrylegs. "It is just a bad habit. She says no one was ever kind to her, and so why should she not bite? Course, it is a very bad habit, but I am sure, if all she says be true, she must have been very ill-used before she came here. John and James do all they can to please her, and our master never uses a whip if a horse behaves himself, so I think she might be good-tempered here. You see," he said with a wise look, "I am 12 years old. I know a great deal, and I can tell you there is not a better place for a horse all round the country than this. John is the best groom that ever was. He has been here 14 years, and you never saw such a kind boy as James is. So it is all Ginger's own fault that she did not stay in that box."